Welcome to month 1 of the BMAD Method track in the Hearts Academy program. Over the next 4 weeks, you're going to learn a framework that fundamentally changes how you approach software development with AI. BMAD stands for the 4 phases you'll master: analysis, planning, solutioning, and implementation. By the end of this month, you'll have delivered a complete product end-to-end using BMAD, from brainstorming an idea all the way through to implemented, reviewed code. This isn't a lecture-heavy course. You'll spend most of your time hands-on, interacting with AI agents and producing real artifacts. Here's how the month breaks down. You're looking at 4 weeks, roughly 15 to 20 hours per week. That's a significant commitment, but the payoff is real. By week 4, you'll have a working product delivered through the BMAD framework. The format is self-paced learning backed by weekly mentor sessions. The mentor sessions are where you get feedback on your artifacts, coaching on your prompting techniques, and guidance when you're stuck. Come prepared with specific questions, because these sessions are most valuable when you bring real work to review. Your milestone for this month is end-to-end delivery. That means using both the quick flow track for a small feature and the full BMAD method track for a medium complexity product. Both must produce working, tested code. By the end of this month, you'll be able to do 5 things. First, install and configure BMAD. Understanding the folder structure and how agents, workflows, and tasks are organized is foundational to everything else. Second, master the 4 phases. You need to know not just what they are, but when to use each one and how they connect. Phase 1 feeds Phase 2, which feeds Phase 3, which feeds Phase 4. Inconsistency between phases is the most common failure mode. Third, activate all 5 agents. Each agent has a persona, a specialty, and a set of commands. You'll learn when to call on Mary the Analyst versus Winston the Architect, and why using the right agent for the right task matters. Fourth, execute quick flow end-to-end. This is the fast track for small features, from spec to code in 2 or 3 chat sessions. Fifth, deliver a full cycle using the BMAD method track. That's the complete workflow: product brief, PRD, architecture, epics, stories, sprint code, review, and retrospective. This is the backbone of the BMAD method. Everything you do flows through these 4 phases. Phase 1, analysis, is optional for well-defined projects. This is where Mary the Analyst helps you brainstorm ideas, research competitors, and create a product brief. If your project requirements are already clear, you can skip this and jump straight to Phase 2. Phase 2 planning is always required. This is where John the PM creates the PRD, the product requirements document. The PRD follows a 12-step process that covers everything from product vision to release strategy. This is the most critical document in the entire workflow. Phase 3, solutioning, is where Winston the Architect takes the PRD and designs the system. Tech stack decisions, database design, API patterns, deployment strategy, all documented here. Winston also breaks requirements into epics and stories and runs an implementation readiness check before you start coding. Phase 4, implementation, is where Bob the Scrum Master plans sprints and Amelia the developer writes code. Each story goes through implementation testing and code review. The key insight is that these phases are sequential and the artifacts chain together. Your product brief feeds your PRD. Your PRD feeds your architecture. Your architecture feeds your stories. Break the chain, and you get inconsistent outputs. BMAD gives you 3 planning tracks, and choosing the right one is critical. Using the wrong track wastes time or produces insufficient planning. Quick flow is for 1 to 15 stories. Bug fixes, small features, well-scoped changes. You start with a quick spec command and go straight to implementation. It's fast. You can deliver in a single session. BMAD method is for 10 to 50 or more stories. Medium products that need a full PRD, architecture document, and proper story breakdown. This is the track you'll use most in professional work. Enterprises for 30 or more stories with compliance requirements, multi-team coordination, or regulatory needs. This adds extra governance and documentation layers on top of the BMAD method track. When choosing a track, think about story count, compliance needs, and team complexity. The right track gives you just enough process without slowing you down. Each BMAD agent has a persona with a name, a specialty, and a communication style. They're not interchangeable. Using the wrong agent for a task produces poor results. Mary the analyst owns Phase 1. She's your brainstorming partner. She uses scamper techniques, mind mapping, and structured ideation to help you explore a problem space. She also creates product briefs and research documents. John, the product manager, owns Phase 2. He's methodical and thorough. He walks you through the 12-step PRD process, pushes for specificity in requirements, and uses Moscow prioritization for features. Winston, the architect, owns Phase 3. He's the most challenging agent to work with, in a good way. He'll push back on vague requirements, question your assumptions, and run adversarial reviews of your architecture. His job is to make sure your design actually supports your PRD. Bob, the Scrum Master, handles sprint planning in Phase 4. He organizes your backlog, creates sprint plans, and tracks progress in the sprint status YAML file. Amelia, the developer, implements stories in Phase 4. She writes code, creates tests, and follows the conventions defined in Project Context M&D. Always activate each agent in a fresh chat session. Never mix agents in a single conversation. Context degradation is real, and it will hurt your output quality. Week 1 is about getting your hands dirty. You'll install BMAD, meet all 5 agents, and deliver your first feature using quick flow. Start with installation. Run nps BMAD method install and select your modules. After installation, explore the folder structure. The BMAD directory contains agents, workflows, and tasks. The BMAD output directory is where generated artifacts go. Understanding this structure helps you debug issues later. Next, activate each agent in separate chat sessions. This is an exercise in understanding agent personas. Talk to Mary, then John, then Winston, then Bob, then Amelia. Notice how each has a different communication style and different commands available. Then do your first quick flow delivery. Pick a small, well-scoped feature, something like adding a health check endpoint or a simple CRUD operation. Run the quick spec command, then implement, then review. The entire cycle should take a few hours. Finally, learn context management. The single most important practice in BMAD is using fresh chats per workflow. Long-running conversations cause context degradation. The AI loses track of earlier instructions and your output quality drops. One workflow, one chat, always. Here's the quick flow workflow in 4 steps. Each step runs in a separate fresh chat session. Step 1, install. Run nps BMAD method install and select the modules you need. This only happens once per project. Step 2, spec. Open a fresh chat and run the quick spec command. Define your feature scope, acceptance criteria, and technical approach. The output is a tech spec document that guides implementation. Step 3, implement. Open another fresh chat and run the dev story command. Build the feature according to the tech spec. Write tests. Make sure everything compiles and runs. Step 4, review. Open yet another fresh chat and run the code review command. This validates code quality, architecture alignment, and test coverage. Each step must start in a clean conversation. This prevents context bleeding between phases and ensures each agent starts with a clear slate. Week 2 takes you into the deeper BMAD workflows. Phase 1 with Mary the analyst and Phase 2 with John the PM. You'll start by activating Mary and running a brainstorming session. The goal is 20 or more ideas. Don't filter early, just generate. Use the brainstorming command and let Mary guide you through structured ideation. Then move to research. The research command helps you explore your product space, analyze competitors, and identify gaps. The output is a research document that feeds your product brief. The product brief pulls together your analysis, problem definition, target audience, value proposition, competitive landscape, key assumptions, and success metrics. These 6 sections give John the PM a solid foundation for the PRD. Then switch to John and start the PRD. The first 6 steps cover product overview, problem statement, target users, feature requirements, non-functional requirements, and user stories. You'll complete steps 7 through 12 in week 3. Take your time with the PRD. Rushed requirements produce bad architecture and buggy code. Iterate with John, push back, ask follow-ups, request alternatives. The first draft is never the best draft. The PRD follows a 12-step process. The first 6 steps are the strategic foundation, defining what you're building and why. The last 6 steps are the technical foundation, defining how it's structured and how it ships. Steps 1 through 6: product overview and vision, problem statement and goals, target users and personas, feature requirements, non-functional requirements, and user stories with scenarios. Steps 7 through 12: information architecture, data model overview, API and integration requirements, security and compliance, success metrics and KPIs, and release strategy with MVP scope. You'll complete steps 1 through 6 in week 2 and steps 7 through 12 in week 3. The PRD validation in week 3 checks that all requirements are specific, testable, and consistent with each other. Week 3 is where your planning becomes concrete. You'll finish the PRD design architecture with Winston and break everything into implementable stories. First, complete PRD 7 through 12. Information architecture, data model, API design, security requirements, success metrics, and release strategy. Then validate the complete PRD against the quality checklist. Every requirement must be specific and testable. Vague requirements like the system should be fast fail validation. You need specific thresholds like page load time under 200 milliseconds for the 95th percentile. Next, activate Winston the architect. Winston will challenge your assumptions. He runs an adversarial review of your architecture decisions, asking why you chose one database over another, why this API pattern instead of that one. This is intentional. It produces better architecture. Winston creates the architecture document covering tech stack with trade-off analysis, system design, database schema, API patterns, deployment strategy, and security design. Then comes epic and story creation. Winston breaks your PRD features into epics, which are groups of related stories that deliver together. Each story follows the INVESTI criteria. Finally, the implementation readiness check validates that your architecture, stories, and PRD are all consistent and ready for development. Invest is the standard for well-written user stories. Every story you create should pass all 6 criteria. Independent means the story can be developed without depending on other stories being done first. This lets your team work in parallel and avoids bottlenecks. Negotiable means the details can be discussed and refined during implementation. A story is a conversation starter, not a rigid contract. Valuable means the story delivers something the user or business cares about. Pure technical tasks should be attached to valuable stories, not standalone. Estimable means the team can look at the story and estimate how long it will take with reasonable confidence. If you can't estimate it, break it down further. Small means the story can be completed within a single sprint. It's too big, split it. Oversized stories are the most common sprint planning failure. Testable means the story has clear acceptance criteria that can be verified. If you can't write a test for it, the requirements aren't clear enough. Week 4 is implementation week. You'll use Bob, the Scrum Master, and Amelia, the developer, to plan a sprint, code stories, run reviews, and conduct a retrospective. Start with Bob for sprint planning. He'll help you select stories for the sprint, organize the backlog, and initialize the sprint status YAML file. This file tracks each story's status throughout the sprint. Then switch to Amelia for story implementation. For each story, open a fresh chat and run the dev story command. Amelia implements the code, writes tests, and follows the conventions in your project context MMD file. Aim to implement 2 to 3 stories with passing tests. After implementation, run a code review in a fresh chat. The code review command validates quality, checks architecture alignment, and identifies issues. Finally, run a retrospective. This documents what went well, what needs improvement, and action items for next time. Retrospectives are part of the BMAD workflow, not just a formality. Your Month 1 challenge is worth 100 points across 4 deliverables, each worth 25 points. First, deliver a quick flow feature. This proves you can set up BMAD, activate agents, create a spec, and implement a working feature end-to-end. Second, produce analysis and planning artifacts. This covers your brainstorming session, product brief, and complete 12-step PRD. The artifacts must form a consistent chain. Third, deliver architecture and stories. Your architecture document must support your PRD requirements, and your stories must follow INVEST criteria. Fourth, execute a sprint and retrospective. Implement 2 to 3 stories with tests, run a code review, and document your retrospective. There's also a cognitive exercise where you pick the correct BMAD planning track for 3 scenarios. This tests your understanding of when to use quick flow versus BMAD method versus enterprise. Everything is submitted via GitHub, with artifacts organized in the BMAD output directory. Each deliverable is worth 25 points for a total of 100. Quick flow delivery covers installation, agent activation, the tech spec, and an implemented feature with tests. You need a working BMAD installation, evidence of all 5 agent activations, a complete quick flow spec, and code that compiles and passes tests. Analysis and planning covers brainstorming output with 20 or more ideas, a research document, a product brief with all 6 sections, and a complete 12-step PRD with Moscow prioritization. Architecture and stories covers your architecture document with tech stack rationale, database and API design, invest-compliant stories grouped into epics, and a passing implementation readiness check. Sprint and retrospective covers your sprint plan, sprint status to YAML, 2 to 3 implemented stories with tests, a code review report, and a retrospective document with actionable items. The grading scale runs from A to F, and A 90 to 100, means all 4 phases are mastered, and your artifacts are production-ready quality. A B 75 to 89 means solid execution with minor gaps. A C 60 to 74 means you met the requirements, but there are quality issues. D, F indicate missing phases or incomplete deliverables. The pass threshold is 60% overall, but there are hard requirements beyond the score. You must demonstrate all BMAD phases with artifacts, and your quick flow feature must be delivered end-to-end. The assessment is weighted: 25% weekly assignments, 25% mentor evaluation, 40% the milestone delivery, and 10% peer feedback. The milestone is worth the most because it's the comprehensive demonstration of your skills. For required reading, start with the BMAD Getting Started tutorial. This walks you through installation and your first workflow. The workflow map reference shows how all the commands connect. The command reference documents every /command available. And the GitHub repository has the source code and examples. For tools, you need Node.js 20 or later, Git configured, and an AI-powered IDE like Cloud Code, Cursor, or Windsurf. Install BMAD via npx BMAD Method install. A Markdown editor helps for reviewing generated artifacts, and a diagramming tool like Excalidraw or Mermaid is useful for architecture visualization. Set up your tools in week 1. Don't wait until need them. That's the overview for month 1. You have 4 weeks of intensive hands-on work ahead. Week 1 gets you installed and delivering with quick flow. Week 2 takes you through analysis and planning. Week 3 builds your architecture and stories. Week 4 is sprint execution and the full cycle. Remember the most important rules. 1 workflow per chat session, always. Iterate with the agents and don't accept the first output. Chain your artifacts so they stay consistent, and use the help command when you're stuck. This is month 1 of 3. Next month covers the BMAD Builder module, where you'll create your own custom agents and workflows. But first, master the fundamentals.